The wrong order. She didn't even feel the ceramic cut into her hand, not at first. The broken coffee mug lay shattered at her feet, hot liquid spreading across the checkered floor of the cafe like blood. Mia's fingers still clutched the handle, as though the cup might come back together if she just held on tight enough. But nothing was coming back together, not the cup, not her job, and maybe not her life either. Her boss's voice, cold and loud, sliced through the silence. "You're done, Mia. Pack your things. We don't need thieves working here." No one moved. No one even breathed. Even the espresso machine went quiet. Behind the counter, one of the baristas turned away, as though if she didn't make eye contact, she wouldn't be next. The man standing at the counter, the one Mia had just given a sandwich to, lowered his head, the corner of his mouth twitching with guilt and shame. His jacket was torn, his cheeks sunken, his hands shaking slightly. He didn't deserve this. None of this was his fault. Mia's voice cracked as she tried to speak. "Gretchen, it was a day-old turkey melt. We throw those away. I didn't think—" "Exactly," Gretchen snapped. "You didn't think." She crossed her arms. Her burgundy nails tapped against her elbow. "That's company property. We don't give handouts here. You're not running a charity." Mia looked at the other employees. Not one of them would meet her eyes. She realized then that she was completely alone. The man at the counter, silent until now, turned to leave. But before he stepped out the door, he turned slightly and met Mia's gaze. "You didn't do anything wrong." Then he was gone. A moment later, so was she. 20 a.m. The walk of shame. Mia stood outside the cafe with a cardboard box in her arms. A crumpled apron, her water bottle, and the faded name tag that once meant security now sat on top. The early morning breeze nipped at her neck. Her phone buzzed, a text from her little brother, Jamie. Did the cafe open late again? She stared at the screen, then typed back, "Got fired." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. She sighed and started walking home. It felt like every step away from the cafe was a step deeper into a life she hadn't prepared for. One mistake, if it could even be called that, and everything had collapsed. All because she gave a hungry man a sandwich that was supposed to be thrown in the trash. Flashback, just 1 hour earlier, 4:42 a.m. The cafe lights flickered as Mia stepped inside, flicking the switch twice like she always had to. Her shoes squeaked on the freshly mopped floor. She tied her apron on and started prepping the pastry case. It was the same routine every morning, predictable, safe. That's what she needed. After her father died last spring, hit by a distracted driver while crossing a street, she clung to routines like a life raft. Her mom had stopped speaking for a while. Jamie nearly dropped out of school. And Mia, she just kept showing up, day after day, open to close. She was barely scraping by, but she still smiled at customers, still wiped tables like it mattered. She was tired, she was grieving, but she was trying. At 7:55 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. She looked up and saw him, the man in the tattered military jacket, tall, gaunt, nervous. He stood awkwardly near the counter, glancing back at the door as though debating whether to walk out. Mia approached gently. "Hi, can I help you?" He hesitated, then asked softly, "Do you have any food you're going to throw out?" Something in her chest tightened. Mia looked toward the kitchen. Gretchen wasn't in yet. The pastries were fresh, but there were a few unsold sandwiches from the day before, wrapped and ready to toss. She made a decision. Quietly, she reached under the counter, grabbed one of the turkey melts, and slid it into a to-go bag. "No charge," she whispered. His eyes welled with tears. "Thank you." He took the sandwich with trembling hands and nodded once. "God bless you." But Gretchen had walked in seconds earlier, and she had seen everything. 12 a.m. Back home, Jamie opened the door before she even knocked. "Are you serious?" he asked, eyeing the box. You really got fired? For a sandwich? Mia nodded. I gave it to a homeless guy. It was trash food anyway. He groaned, pacing the living room. That's ridiculous. You were their best worker. That lady's insane. She's strict. She says I broke company policy. Jamie stopped pacing. What now? She shrugged. Find another job. Maybe at that bookstore on Maple. I heard they're hiring. Jamie didn't say anything for a while, just looked at the floor. She didn't mention the overdue rent, or the fact that they'd have to decide between groceries and electricity. Again this week. Some burdens didn't need to be said aloud. 4:43 a.m. That same night Mia couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the way Gretchen's eyes had burned into her. The silence from her co-workers. The customers' kind words. Before leaving, then came the lights. Bright white headlights beamed through their second-floor apartment window. A low rumble followed, like trucks. Big ones. She got up and moved to the window. Outside, 3 large military vehicles had stopped directly in front of the cafe. Men in uniform began stepping out. Silent, organized, deliberate. Jamie came up, behind her. What the hell? They counted 12, then 18, then over 24 men, all in full uniform. Some had medals. Others carried only small notebooks and bags. No weapons. One stepped up to the cafe door and gently knocked. No. Answer. Another soldier took something from his coat pocket, a white envelope, and carefully taped it to the door's glass panel. Then one by one the men turned around and filed back into the vehicles. Not a word was spoken. Before the last man stepped inside, he turned toward the building above the cafe, where Gretchen lived, and said loudly, "This is for the woman who helped our brother." Then they drove off, silent. In perfect formation, Mia and Jamie stood frozen. Did that really just happen? He whispered. She didn't answer. The next morning, headlines everywhere. The news was already spreading. Military unit leaves mystery. Envelope at local cafe. Cafe owner silent after late-night visit from soldiers, a neighbor posted. A video footage online, grainy but clear. Uniformed men in the street, the white envelope. The calm, calculated exit. The internet exploded. The cafe remained closed. Unusual. Gretchen never missed a day. Her phone went straight to voicemail. A local news crew stood outside by 8 a.m., reporting live. Speculations were everywhere. Back, at home, Mia sat on the couch in disbelief. Her phone pinged. A message from Kelly, one of her old co-workers. "Kelly, you seeing this?" "Kelly, they left a letter and a check. Police took it." Kelly, "Rumor is the check was for $1 million. Kelly, "What did you do? Who was that?" "Guy?" Mia's head spun. She thought back to the man in the camouflage jacket. He'd thanked her, said, "God bless." Nothing more. He never mentioned the military. He never said his name. Who was he? And why had a group of uniformed men shown up the night after he received a sandwich? 37 a.m. A familiar face Mia needed answers. She walked back toward the cafe. A crowd had gathered. The police were blocking the door. Gretchen's upstairs apartment remained eerily quiet. Officer Ramos stood near the tape, sipping coffee. She recognized him. He was the same officer who had helped her file paperwork after her father's death. "Officer Ramos," she said. He turned. "Mia. Hey, you okay?" She nodded, but pointed to the cafe. "What's going on?" "I used to work here. Until yesterday." He looked at her more closely. "You're the girl who helped that guy?" Her breath caught. "How did you know?" "We saw the security footage." He stepped closer and lowered his voice. There was a letter in the envelope and a cashier's check. "How much?" His lips pressed into a straight line. $1 million. Mia's knees nearly buckled. He continued, "The letter said, for the employee who showed our brother humanity when the world didn't. Use this however you see fit." She gave more than food. She gave dignity. Mia blinked, stunned. It wasn't even my cafe. I'm not... Ramos raised an eyebrow. That may be, but the soldiers didn't address it to Gretchen. She stared at him. Then, who's it for? He shrugged. That's what we're all trying to figure out. The envelope nobody expected. The sunlight didn't feel warm that morning. It felt like a spotlight, shining down on Mia as though the world had turned to look directly at her. Strangers stared as she stood outside the cafe, still cordoned off with police tape. News vans were everywhere. Microphones. Curious eyes. But it was her name that changed everything. She hadn't heard it clearly the first time. The second time, she froze. Mia Taylor. Officer Ramos stood just beyond the yellow tape. He motioned for her to come closer. You're needed inside. 9:17 a.m. Inside the cafe, the scent of burnt espresso and day-old pastries still hung in the air. But the mood inside had shifted entirely. Where once Gretchen's rules ruled, now a new energy had taken over. A thick silence, broken only by the whispers of detectives and the clicking of a forensic camera. On the counter sat the envelope, white, unmarked, creased from travel. Mia's heart pounded. We're reopening it with you present, Ramos said. Legally, there's no recipient listed, but the soldiers clearly referred to you. It's our job to make sure it goes to the right hands. A woman in a black suit stepped forward. Her badge said Federal Agent Monroe. She gave Mia a long look, not cold, but not warm either. Analytical. You're Mia Taylor, she asked. Mia nodded. Yes. Monroe pulled on gloves and opened the envelope slowly. Inside were two things: a cashier's check for $1,000, a handwritten letter on old military stationery. Agent Monroe read aloud. To the woman who gave, without being asked. You didn't know who he was. You didn't care. You just saw a man in need. Our brother, Lieutenant Marcus Hale, lost everything after coming home. Family, honor, hope. But yesterday he met you. And for the first time in years, he was seen. Not as a failure, not as trash, just as a human being. That moment mattered more than you'll ever understand. We have all served. We've all lost. This is our gift to you. Do what you will. Build something better. You already started. The room went completely still. Mia's eyes burned. She remembered the man's face, his hands, the way he said, God bless you. That was Marcus Hale, she whispered. I didn't know he was military. Agent Monroe looked up from the letter. That's exactly the point. 10:03 a.m. Gretchen breaks her silence. Gretchen's front door creaked open above the cafe. Hair unbrushed, robe hanging loosely at her sides, she descended the steps like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her usual fire was gone. Her lips trembled slightly. She walked into the cafe and stopped short when she saw Mia standing near the counter. What are you doing here? Ramos stepped forward. Miss Faulkner, we need to speak with you about your decision to terminate Ms. Taylor's employment yesterday. Gretchen's eyes narrowed. I don't owe her anything. She gave away product. That's theft. Policy is clear. She gave food that was meant for the trash, Ramos replied evenly. Gretchen shrugged. Trash or not, it's still mine, Agent Monroe spoke. We also need to ask why you withheld the envelope left last night. According to witnesses, you opened it before calling the police. That did it. Gretchen's jaw tightened. I didn't know what it was. I panicked. You panicked when you saw $1 million check? Monroe raised an eyebrow. It didn't have her name on it, Gretchen snapped, pointing at Mia. For all I knew, it was a prank or a scam. I was protecting my business. Mia watched her in silence. This woman had fired her without hesitation, humiliated her in front of customers, and now stood trembling under pressure. Mia didn't feel angry. She felt done. 30 a.m. Legal questions. Back at the station, a legal team gathered. The letter didn't specifically name Mia as the payee on the check, but it referred to her action, her identity, her moment of compassion. Technically, the check was made out to cash. Mia could legally claim it. But if she did, there would be backlash, cameras, headlines, suspicion, and maybe even people who wanted a piece of her now. She sat in the waiting room, Jamie beside her, flipping through news articles. "Listen to this," he said, reading from his phone. "Who is Mia Taylor, the woman who sparked a military mystery? There's already a Reddit thread about you. People are calling you the Sandwich Saint." Mia groaned. "That's ridiculous." Jamie grinned. "No, it's kind of amazing." She wasn't sure what to think. She'd been fired, humiliated, and now suddenly she was the center of a nationwide story involving a war hero and $1 million check. 11 p.m. The knock back home. Mia tried to nap. She couldn't. The knock on the door startled both her and Jamie. She opened it cautiously. Standing there was Marcus Hale, clean-shaven, new clothes, his eyes brighter, his back straighter, and in his hands a small brown box. Mia blinked. I hope it's okay I found you," he said. "I asked one of your co-workers. She told me where you live." Mia nodded slowly. "You look better." Marcus smiled softly. "It's amazing what a warm bed and a shower can do." He handed her the box. Inside was his military medal, Bronze Star, along with a folded photograph. Marcus in uniform, surrounded by his unit. Most of the men matched the ones from the night before. "I wanted you to have this," he said. "You gave me something I'd forgotten existed." Grace, she was stunned. "I just gave you a sandwich." "No," he said, eyes wet. "You gave me dignity." Flashback. Marcus's fall that night after Jamie went to bed. Marcus stayed and told her everything. After 3 tours overseas, he'd come home to a country he no longer recognized, and one that didn't recognize him either. He lost his wife to divorce. His daughter wouldn't speak to him. His injuries weren't visible, but they were deep. PTSD, anxiety, shame. He lost his job, then his apartment, then himself. He tried shelters, got robbed, slept in a park. Nobody looked him in the eye anymore. Until Mia. "One kind act," he said, "was enough to stop me from ending my life that night." Mia felt her throat tighten. "And the others?" she asked. "My brothers. My unit. We made a pact. If any one of us ever fell, the others would step in. And they did. That letter. That money? That wasn't just for me. It was for all of us, and now for you. It's 7:06 a.m. The news spreads by morning. Mia's story had gone global. Former cafe worker receives $1 million for kindness to veteran. Sandwich for a soldier sparks national wave of giving. What we can learn from Mia Taylor. Donations poured in. Emails flooded her inbox. People wanted to thank her, ask her to speak, write a book, share her story, but all she wanted was something simple, to do something good with what she'd been given. A.M. The big decision sitting. At the kitchen table, the check in her hand, Mia turned to Jamie. "What if we opened a place?" she said. He blinked. "What kind of place?" "A cafe, like the one I worked at, but different." "How different?" she smiled. "A cafe where no one goes hungry, where day-old food goes to the hungry, where people can leave notes of encouragement, or buy coffee in advance for someone in need, where nobody gets fired for caring." Jamie leaned forward. "That's actually incredible. And I'll name it after Dad," she whispered. "He believed in second chances. So do I." Ending cliffhanger. An envelope. Within the envelope later that night, as Mia reread the letter, something caught her attention. The envelope had a false bottom. Carefully, she lifted it open. Inside was a smaller note, this one on folded parchment, coordinates, a name, a warning. "Mia, this isn't over. There's more behind Marcus's fall, behind the cafe. Watch your back. Trust only those who stood by you." A friend, she stared at the numbers. Latitude, longitude, a location far outside the city. Mia's hands trembled. What had she stumbled into? And what secrets were still hiding in the shadows of that sandwich? The coordinates of silence. The paper trembled in Mia's hands. Coordinates. A name. A warning. She read it again by the dim kitchen light. Mia, this isn't over. There's more. Behind Marcus's fall. Behind the cafe. Watch your back. Trust only those who stood by you. A friend. The name written beneath the message was one she didn't recognize. David R. Maddox. And the coordinates led to a forested region 2, hours north of the city. Why would a veteran's thank you letter contain a secret warning? Mia whispered. Jamie came in, rubbing his eyes. You're still up? Mia folded the note quickly. Couldn't sleep. She didn't tell him about the message. Not yet. She wasn't even sure what she was holding. But something in her gut told her this wasn't just about a sandwich. 35 a.m. Marcus's story unravels. The next day, Mia met Marcus at a quiet coffee shop downtown. He looked stronger than before, rested. But when she showed him the hidden note, his expression changed. His hands stiffened. His eyes dropped to the floor. I never saw this, he muttered. Do you know who David Maddox is? She asked. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. He was my commanding officer, Special Projects Division. He disappeared 3 years ago, supposedly. Retired, but some of us heard whispers. Whispers, Mia pressed. Marcus leaned closer, voice low. We were part of something unofficial. A contract team attached to military supply chains, overseas and domestic. When we started asking questions about missing equipment, stuff vanishing en route, he told us to back off. Mia's stomach dropped. You think he had something to do with your discharge? Marcus looked haunted. I think we were getting close to something, and someone wanted us out of the way. 12 p.m. Gretchen makes a move. Meanwhile, across town, Gretchen Faulkner wasn't taking her fall from grace quietly. The cafe had been shuttered by the health department, thanks to multiple violations discovered after the police entered the building. News cameras camped outside her home now, and worse, the cafe's investors were pulling out. In desperation, she made a call. I need to speak to Mark Sutter, she said. Tell him Mia's stirring things up. If the wrong people get involved, the whole Maddox thing could come out. There was a long silence on the line. Then a voice answered coldly, handle it, or we will. 4:02 p.m. Journey to the coordinates. Mia didn't tell Jamie where she was going. He had a job interview. She left a note on the fridge. Taking a short drive, just needs space. She drove north, following the numbers from the mysterious message. The farther she got, the less modern the world became. Strip malls vanished. Cell signal died. Trees grew thick along the 2-lane road. Eventually, she reached a rusted gate, chained shut. A faded military-style sign read, Authorized personnel only, property of the Maddox Foundation. She parked her car and climbed the gate. Her shoes crunched over gravel. Birds scattered overhead. And then she saw it. A burned-out warehouse, roof partially collapsed, metal siding warped and blackened by fire. It looked abandoned. But someone had been here recently. Footprints in the dirt, a cigarette still smoldering by the door. She crept inside. 7 p.m. Inside the Maddox facility. The warehouse smelled like ash and mold. Inside were broken filing cabinets, toppled computers, and a wall of old photographs. Military men, cargo planes, even images of the cafe, years before she ever worked there. Why was her old workplace on a military wall? Mia's breath caught. She reached for one of the files, half buried under debris. The label read, Supply Drop D13, Urban Distribution Partnership, Faulkner Logistics. Faulkner, as in Gretchen Faulkner. Mia flipped through the report. It showed a scheme where expired military rations and supplies were being funneled into private urban businesses under a tax shelter program. But instead of being distributed to the homeless, much of the inventory was being resold illegally. The cafe had been a front, and Marcus, he had seen it, worked too close to it. Suddenly, a noise behind her. Mia spun. A shadow moved across the far wall. She wasn't alone. 12 p.m. "The man in the cap, don't move." The voice was rough, male, and close. Mia slowly turned around. A man stood there, in a ball cap, faded jeans, and a military jacket. His right hand rested on a sidearm at his hip, but not drawn. "Name's Dax," he said. "You shouldn't be here." "I got a note," Mia said. "A warning. I think someone's trying to—" "I know who you are," Dax interrupted. "You helped Marcus. That means you're either brave or very stupid. I just want—" "The truth," Dax exhaled. Then he pointed to the door. "Follow me. Quietly, you're being watched." Monday, 27 p.m. The truth beneath the floorboards. Dax led her behind the warehouse to an old bunker entrance hidden beneath a pile of wood. Inside, the air was cold and damp, but there were files, maps, and old flash drives. A war room. "This place," Dax said, flicking on a single light bulb, "used to be Maddox's side project. He called it Community Relief Initiative, but it was a cover for siphoning off resources, food, gear, meds, sold them off. Gretchen was part of it." Mia shook her head. Why would she run a cafe for that? She had the logistics network. Civilian shell, quiet, untraceable. Mia's thoughts spun. "And Marcus," she asked, "he found one of the drop points overseas, started asking questions. Suddenly he's dishonorably discharged for unauthorized actions. You ever wonder why his file's mostly blacked out?" Mia felt sick. She thought this was just a story of kindness, a moment that changed lives, but it was more, much more. 10 p.m. Back in the city, while Mia uncovered the truth, Gretchen was unraveling. Pacing her living room, she watched as another news segment aired. New evidence ties cafe owner to illegal military scheme. Her phone rang. A blocked number. "Did you leak it?" she hissed. The voice replied, "You should have paid attention. Mia didn't just feed a man, she woke a ghost. Maddox never left the game, and neither did we." The line went dead. Then a knock at her door. She opened it, and a package sat on the mat. Inside, a single sandwich, a note that read, "You starved others. Now you'll understand hunger." Her hands shook. 2:30 p.m. The flash drive back at the bunker. Dax handed Mia a small silver flash drive. "This has everything. Supply routes, bank records, emails, Maddox's plans. If this gets out, people will go down." "Why me?" Mia asked. "Why not a journalist, the police?" "Because they'll bury it," Dax said. "You've got the spotlight, and you've got the heart. That's rarer than you think." She took it, but before she could respond, gunfire outside. 3 p.m. The escaped Dax yanked her down as bullets hit the bunker wall. "They found us," he growled. He tossed her a backpack. "Flash drive's backed up. This is yours. Go out the side tunnel. It leads to the woods. Don't stop. Don't turn back." "What about you?" Mia cried. He smiled. "Someone's got to stall them." She ran. The tunnel was dark and narrow, dirt and roots all around her. Behind her, more shots. A yell. Then silence. When she emerged, the sun was low and golden. She didn't look back. 30 p.m. Home again, but not the same. When Mia returned home, Jamie was waiting, panic on his face. "Where were you?" "I was about to call the police." She threw her arms around him and held tight. "I know what happened to Marcus. I know everything." Then she showed him the flash drive. "I have proof. I have to expose them." He looked stunned. "That could get you killed." Mia looked at the worn-out drive in her hand. "Or it could save the next Marcus." Whispers and warnings. The night after Mia returned from the bunker, sleep never came. She sat in bed, the flash drive clutched tightly in her hand. Every creak of the floor, every car driving by made her heart jump. Jamie had drifted off hours ago, but Mia remained awake. The images of Maddox's bunker, Dax's sacrifice, and the gunfire looping in her mind. What she held could ruin lives, but it could also save them. AM. An anonymous email. Mia was still staring at the ceiling when her phone buzzed. New email. No sender. No subject. Just one line. If you go public, we'll bury the past, and you with it. She stared at the screen. Her fingers trembled. The threat was clear, and it meant only one thing. They knew she had the flash drive. She sat up, mind racing. I need to move fast. TJM. Jamie's doubt in the kitchen. Mia explained everything to Jamie. She told him about Dax, the Maddox Foundation, the smuggling scheme, and how the cafe had been a front. She handed him the flash drive. Jamie scrolled through files, stunned. This is insane. There are military stamps on these documents, shipment logs, fake charities, off-the-book deposits, and these names. This goes deep. I have to go public, Mia said. But I need a plan. Jamie hesitated. Mia, are you sure this isn't too dangerous? What if we go to the police instead? They're involved, Jamie, Dax warned me. The cops, the health department, even Gretchen's investors. This isn't just about the cafe. It's about a system that's been stealing from the people it promised to serve. Jamie nodded slowly. Then we're in this together. 15 a.m. The journalist, they met Riley Chen, an independent investigative journalist Mia had met once at a community fundraiser. Riley was skeptical at first, but once she saw the documents, on Mia's laptop her face turned pale. This isn't just shady, this is treason. Some of these names are tied to federal agencies. This could cause waves. Will you help me expose it? Mia asked. Riley looked her in the eyes. If you're ready to burn everything to the ground, yes. Next PM, the cafe reopens. Driving back from the meeting, Mia and Jamie passed by the old cafe. To their shock, it was open again. People were inside. Workers moved about. And Gretchen, she stood by the counter, smiling like nothing ever happened. That's not possible, Jamie said. Wasn't it shut down? Mia narrowed her eyes. Something was wrong. They parked down the street and watched from afar. Mia pulled out her phone and started filming discreetly. That's when she saw it. A man loading boxes into the back room. Not food or supplies, military grade. Crates, unmarked, but unmistakable. Mia's throat tightened. They've restarted the operation. 10 p.m. Betrayal at the news station. Riley arranged for Mia to meet with her editor at an independent news station. But the moment Mia walked into the building, she knew something was wrong. The receptionist stiffened. Eyes darted to a camera overhead. Someone whispered on a phone behind the desk. Then the door opened. 2 men in suits stepped in. Mr. Evans, you'll need to come with us. Who are you? Mia asked, backing away. Internal affairs, one said. We received a report about stolen federal property in your possession. Jamie stood and stepped between them. You're not IA. You didn't even flash badges. The taller man smirked. You want to test that? Mia turned to Riley, who looked stunned. Did you tell anyone? Mia demanded. I only spoke to my editor. I swear. They knew, Mia said, grabbing Jamie's hand. They were waiting. They ran, bolting out the back as the men shouted. They disappeared down the alley. Behind them, sirens wailed. 45 p.m. A friend in the shadows. Back at home, Mia packed what she could. We can't stay, she said. They know where we live. A knock interrupted her. Jamie froze. Don't answer, Mia whispered, but a familiar voice called through the door. If I wanted you gone, you'd be gone. I brought help. Marcus. Mia opened the door. He stood there, bruised but alive. Beside him, Dax, alive. Thought you were dead, Mia whispered. I let them think that, Dax said, stepping in. They shot at me, missed. I crawled out the back and disappeared. Marcus added, We've been watching Gretchen. They're moving. The last of the shipments, whatever they're planning. It's happening tonight. Dax dropped a blueprint on the table. It was of a private airstrip outside the city. They're flying the evidence out. Once it's gone for good. So are they. Mia looked up. Then we stop them tonight. SAC PM. The setup plan was risky. Mia would pose as a courier, someone from the original supply chain, delivering documents to Gretchen. She'd wear a wire. Riley would stream it live. Marcus and Dax would watch from a distance. If things went south, they'd move in. I'm ready, Mia said, slipping the flash drive into a decoy envelope. The real one stayed with Jamie. Jamie grabbed her hand before she left. Come back to me, she nodded. I will. This ends tonight. 7:20 p.m. The confrontation. The private airstrip was tucked behind a forest, lit by only a few yellow floodlights. Mia approached the hangar, dressed in dark jeans and a courier jacket. 2 guards eyed her. Delivery for Faulkner, she said. They let her in. Inside, Gretchen stood near a table, clipboard in hand. Her eyes widened as she saw Mia. Well, Gretchen said. The girl who wanted to feed the poor. Looks like your kitchen got a lot bigger, Mia replied. I could have helped you once, Gretchen said. But you burned your bridges. I didn't burn them, Mia said. You did. Gretchen's eyes narrowed. Hand me the envelope. Mia passed it over. Gretchen opened it, eyes scanning the flash drive. Then she laughed. You really think this changes anything? At that moment, Riley's voice whispered through Mia's earpiece. We're live, 30,000 viewers, and counting. Gretchen froze. I wouldn't do anything stupid, Mia said. You're being streamed. Suddenly Gretchen's expression changed, cold, calculated. Fine, she said. Then let them hear this. She turned to the camera and spoke clearly. You think I did this alone? Every name on that drive approved it. Congressmen, generals, charities you donate to. You want a villain? You'll need an army. Outside, Marcus and Dax watched, stunned. She's naming names, Marcus whispered, but then gunshots. Someone opened fire from the shadows. Riley screamed in Mia's ear, We're losing the signal. The guards panicked. Mia hit the floor as chaos erupted. 42 p.m. Smoke and shadows. Mia crawled behind a stack of crates. Smoke filled the hangar as more shots rang out. She saw Gretchen flee through a side door. Marcus burst in, yelling for Mia. Dax followed, returning fire at the attackers. Mia! Jamie's voice came through her earpiece. Are you okay? I have the real drive, she shouted. I'm getting out. But then a figure grabbed her from behind. The man in the suit, the one who had watched her house. He whispered in her ear, You should have walked away. Before he could pull her back, Marcus tackled him. They fought viciously, fists flying. Mia ran. She burst out into the open night. Sirens howled in the distance. Helicopters above. The cavalry had arrived. PM. The flash drive goes global. The feed returned just as Riley uploaded the files. Within minutes, the story exploded. Corruption exposed. Military supplies diverted by civilian fronts. Explosive allegations shake Washington. Whistleblower Maya Evans releases proof. Of Black Ops Network, Maddox's name returned to headlines. Investigations reopened. Gretchen vanished, along with several of the other conspirators. But the damage was done. The system had cracked. Chart PM. Home again. Mia sat on her front steps, eyes watching the stars. Jamie wrapped a blanket around her. You did it, he said. She shook her head. We did it, he smiled. The girl who got fired for feeding a homeless man brought down an empire. She finally allowed herself a small smile. But just as she relaxed, her phone buzzed. A new message, no number, just one image. A photo of her father, smiling, standing beside Maddox, and beneath it, you still don't know the whole story. The man in the photograph. Mia stared at her phone screen in shock. Her father's face, familiar and warm, smiled back at her in the photograph. But what twisted her stomach was the man beside him. Maddox. The same man behind the global corruption ring. The man who had orchestrated everything from the shadows, and below the photo, the message burned in her thoughts. You still don't know the whole story. PM. Shattered illusions. Jamie leaned in, reading the message over Mia's shoulder. Is that my father? Mia whispered. I thought he died in a car accident when I was 12. Jamie's face darkened. But he knew Maddox. That makes no sense. Mia nodded slowly, her voice unsteady. He was an accountant, worked late hours. He told me stories about helping non-profits, working for causes that mattered. I believed. He was one of the good guys. She stared back at the photo. Her father looked younger, but his expression, it wasn't warm. It was confident. Hardened, cold, tin-tuned, 30 p.m. The old journal, determined to uncover the truth, Mia tore through her late mother's storage boxes in the attic. She found a tattered leather journal, one she remembered her mother guarding tightly. When Mia was young, inside, in her mother's looping handwriting, were fragments of entries. I told him this would end badly. Maddox isn't a visionary. He's a weapon wrapped in a smile. He says it's about helping veterans, but these shipments don't make sense. It feels dirty, illegal. If anything happens to me or Mia, it wasn't an accident. Jamie looked over the pages with her. Your mom knew. She tried to get away, Mia whispered. She must have found out. And Dad, he stayed. Midnight. Dax's revelation, Mia called Dax. He arrived within 20 minutes, hair still damp from a rushed shower and eyes haunted by memories. I was waiting for you to find that photo, he said almost sadly. Your father was Maddox's right hand, the money guy, the one who cleaned up the mess. Mia's heart pounded. Why didn't you tell me? I wasn't sure you could handle it, and I wasn't sure if you were still one of them. I was 12, she snapped. My life was destroyed when he died. Dax sighed. He didn't die, Mia. He disappeared, faked the crash, got a new identity. And I think he's still working for Maddox. Mia's world tilted. Everything, every fight for justice, every sleepless night was built on a lie. A.M. Ghosts of the past, unable to sleep, Mia returned to the bunker. It was empty, just as before. The air was damp, the walls silent. But she wasn't there for clues. She walked to the rusted filing cabinet Dax had shown her and opened a locked drawer. Inside was a single envelope with her name on it, handwritten, in her father's pen. She opened it with shaking hands. Mia, if you're reading this, I'm already gone, or worse. I didn't want this life for you, but I couldn't walk away when I should have. I watched good people disappear, watched your mother try to save us both. I chose wrong. Maddox owns too much, and the people in his pocket don't care who dies, as long as the money flows. But you were always light. Even as a child, you gave sandwiches to strangers on the street. You didn't care who they were. If you still have that fire, then finish what I started but was too much of a coward to end. Find the ledger. It's the key to everything. And Mia, trust no one who wears a badge. Dad 6 a.m. A name in the shadows. Jamie dug into Federal archives and found something chilling. Maddox's real name was Victor Colton. Before forming his foundation, he had been court-martialed during a classified military operation overseas, but all records were sealed after his mysterious rehabilitation. Then Jamie found it. A fake charity, created under a shell corporation, used a consultant by the name Evan Rowe. Mia stared at the screen. That's my dad. Everything made sense. The donations, the recovery centers that never existed, and the shipments routed through charities to disappear into private hands. If she could find the ledger her father mentioned, the one Maddox had trusted him to manage, it would expose the full operation. Names, dates, money, everything. Tuckers. A.M. The black site Dax had a hunch. There's one place your father might have hidden it, he said. A government warehouse that's not on any map. I worked security there once. It's where Maddox stored the things he couldn't destroy, but didn't dare keep close. Jamie raised an eyebrow. So a ghost warehouse run by no one and guarded by people who don't exist. Exactly, Mia nodded. Then that's where we go. 30 p.m. Infiltration. The warehouse sat on the edge of an abandoned airfield, camouflaged behind barbed wire and an old condemned sign. Mia, Dax, and Jamie slipped through the fence and moved quickly. Dax picked the side door lock. They entered a silent corridor filled with crates and locked cabinets. After an hour of searching, they found it. A steel briefcase with her father's initials, ER inside. A black leather ledger still pristine. Mia flipped through the pages. There it was. Every transaction, every name, every shipment, each coded alias matched to a real identity. It was the smoking gun. Suddenly, sirens blared. Red lights flashed. Dax grabbed Mia's hand. "We've got what we need. Let's move." 45 p.m. The man behind the curtain. As they fled the warehouse, a black SUV blocked their exit. Mia's breath caught as the driver stepped out. Her father, alive. He looked older, thinner. A scar curved across his cheek. "Hello, Mia." She froze. "I thought you were dead," she whispered. "I wanted you to think that. You worked for him, for Maddox. You helped kill innocent people. I didn't pull the trigger. I just made the numbers balance. Until I couldn't anymore." "Why now?" Mia asked. "Why reveal yourself?" "Because Maddox doesn't forgive. He found out I was helping Dax. He'll kill you too, Mia." "I'm not afraid of him. You should be." He looked at her, pain in his eyes. "I've done terrible things, but you can still fix this. Take the ledger, give it to someone who still has a soul." And then, gunfire. Maddox's mercenaries had arrived. "Run!" her father shouted. Drawing a pistol, Jamie grabbed her and they bolted as her father covered them. She didn't look back, but in her heart, she knew he wouldn't make it out. PM. A national broadcast with Riley's help. Mia arranged a live-stream press conference. She held up the ledger before the world. "My name is Mia Evans. I was fired for feeding a homeless man." That was the first domino. What followed was a trail of corruption, blood, and betrayal that leads to some of the most powerful people in this country. This ledger is proof. She turned the pages slowly, letting the camera record every name. The Maddox Foundation was a lie, and the people behind it are still in power, but they're not untouchable. Within minutes, the stream went viral. Exposé of the decade. Whistleblower reveals black ledger tied to military and politicians. Warrants were issued. Investigations opened. Several leaders resigned. Maddox's face hit every screen, but he had vanished. Al PM. The calm before the storm. That night, Mia sat in her living room with Jamie and Dax. The world was watching, but a storm still brewed in the shadows. Dax stared at the television. "You know he won't stop, right? Maddox won't take this lying down." "I know," Mia said. "But now the world is looking. He can't hide anymore." Jamie turned to her. "What if he comes after you?" "Then I'll be ready." Her phone buzzed again. Another anonymous message. This time a video. Maddox, sitting in a dim room, staring at the camera. "Nice try, Mia. But the game's not over. You've started something you can't control. Let's see if your light can survive the dark." The reckoning. The city was quiet, unnervingly so. Mia stood by her window watching as streetlights flickered beneath a grey sky. Her phone buzzed again. Anonymous call. She didn't answer. She knew who it was. Maddox had vanished. After the press conference, no arrests, no sightings. No voice recordings except for that one chilling video. "Let's see if your light can survive the dark." Her heart told her, this wasn't over. Not yet. AM. Shadow of fear. Jamie stirred awake on the couch. Dax sat at the dining table, cleaning a small pistol. His face was stone. "You sure you want to go through with this?" he asked Mia. "I have no choice," she said. He's not going to stop. Not until he silences me or I stop him first. Jamie glanced at the ledger again. We've already released everything. The files are everywhere. Why would he still come after you? Because it's not about the files anymore, Mia whispered. It's about revenge. Maddox doesn't just erase evidence, he erases people. 10:45 a.m. The trap Mia had a plan. She uploaded a final message online addressed to Maddox. You want me? I'm not hiding. I'm where it all began. The homeless shelter where she had first fed the man, now closed, stood like a skeleton of her old life. The air smelled of mold and rain. Windows were boarded. The building groaned with wind. But it was perfect. Jamie and Dax monitored the street from a van nearby, earpieces linked. Police had refused to protect Mia. Too many of them were on Maddox's payroll. She would do this alone, or so Maddox would think. 15 p.m. The face of the devil. The door creaked open. Mia turned. And there he was. Maddox. His presence filled the room. Calm, composed, his silver hair slicked back. He wore a black coat and a scar like a story across his jaw. Well done, Mia, he said. Very dramatic. You could have had a fine career in propaganda. You're a coward, she said, hiding behind donations and dead men. He chuckled. You exposed the ledger, and yet here I am. You won't get away with this. Who's going to stop me? He asked. A waitress? A dead accountant? A journalist with a podcast? I have proof. No, he said calmly, stepping closer. You had proof. I've already scrubbed half the leads. The rest will die in court. The media's attention span is shorter than a goldfish. He took another step. But you, he whispered, you're a symbol now. People think you're some kind of martyr. That's dangerous. Martyrs make revolutions. He pulled a pistol from his coat. Mia stood still. I'm not afraid of you, she said. You should be. In 12:19 p.m., ambush crack. A shot echoed, but it wasn't Maddox's. Dax tackled him from behind. Guns skidded across the floor. Maddox slammed Dax into a broken table, throwing punches with terrifying precision. For a man in his 60s, he moved like a soldier. Fast, precise, ruthless. Jamie burst in through the back entrance, swinging a metal pipe. She caught Maddox in the ribs. He staggered. Mia kicked the pistol toward Jamie, but Maddox was already on his feet, blood trickling from his mouth, eyes burning with rage. You think this changes anything? He shouted. I've got backups in 4 countries, governments in my pocket. You've scratched a giant, and giants crush ants. I'm not an ant, Mia said. You're a nuisance. Suddenly, sirens. Red and blue lights flooded the broken windows. Maddox's eyes widened. You called them? He hissed. Jamie raised her phone. Live stream, genius, everything you just said, broadcasted to 5 million viewers. Maddox lunged, but this time Mia swung the pipe herself. He dropped like a stone. Seconds later, police swarmed in. 30 p.m. Arrest and shockwaves. Maddox was arrested on 16 charges, including conspiracy, racketeering, and manslaughter. His network began to crumble. Within 48 hours, 2 senators resigned. A weapons shipment was seized off the coast of Florida. 10 shell companies were shut down. 3 generals were placed under investigation. But the biggest shock of all, Mia's father's ledger had contained backups Maddox never knew about. Copies hidden in 3 separate banks under a pseudonym. The financial trail exposed a billion-dollar fraud scheme. Global, dirty, bloody. PM. Recognition. Mia didn't want fame, but fame found her. News outlets called her the girl who dared to speak. Talk shows begged her to appear. Books were already being drafted. She declined them all. Instead, she sat quietly in her small apartment, watching news footage of Maddox being led into a courtroom in handcuffs. The same man who tried to bury the truth under threats and wealth. Now, he was a prisoner. 1 week later, A message from the streets. Outside the old shelter, people began leaving handwritten notes and flowers. Strangers. Some wrote, "You reminded me that kindness matters. My brother died because of those weapons. Thank you for speaking up. You gave us back our faith in justice." One note simply read, "One sandwich changed everything." Mia stood quietly, tears in her eyes. It wasn't just about Maddox anymore. It was about every person who had been overlooked, stepped on, silenced. Months later, the new mission Mia used the whistleblower reward and donations to reopen the shelter, not just as a food center, but as a justice hub. She called it the Ledger. Its mission: feed the hungry, protect the unheard, and expose those who abuse power. Jamie ran the media unit. Dax trained new whistleblowers. And Mia, she served sandwiches at the front counter every afternoon. One day, a little girl asked her, "Why do you still work here when you're famous?" Mia smiled, "Because this is where the story started, and where new ones begin." Final scene: peace. At last late. At night, Mia sat alone, sipping tea. A soft knock came at the door. It was a courier. No name, no address, just a package. Inside, a small photo. Her father, standing outside a cabin in the woods, holding a newspaper with the headline, "Maddox trial begins today," on the back, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "Still watching, still proud. Be safe." Mia held the photo close to her heart. She didn't know where he was, but she knew he was alive, and maybe, just maybe, his soul had been saved by her courage. The end final lesson. One small act of kindness, like feeding a hungry man, can trigger a chain reaction that topples giants, saves lives, and rebuilds the soul of a nation. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to stand anyway, even when the world says to sit down.